Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming to our event. Tell me your idea, and I'll help you shape it further. I'm June, content strategist at Iterative. Joining me is Hsu Ken, managing partner at Iterative, and Martha Cabero, who is a content manager at Iterative. She'll be helping at the back end, and you'll see her at the chat mostly. Before we get started, I wanted to quickly talk about Iterative. So as you can see, the pictures on the slide, so these are the past events that we've hosted. We've run this event format before, but this is the first time we're doing it virtually and opening up to globally. I think there are some people from different parts of the world, so we're really excited for that. Maybe quick note about Iterative for those who aren't familiar with us. Iterative is a VC accelerator based in Southeast Asia, founded for founders by founders. Our mission is to increase the GDP of Southeast Asia through entrepreneurship. To do that, we need to do two things: make entrepreneurship more accessible to more people and give founders the tools and support to be successful, such as running events like this. Since we started in March 2020, so that's back in COVID times, if you guys remember, we've raised 65 million across two funds. We've invested in 100 companies, over 200 founders. Some of the founders are actually here. So if you see Charles, Aaron, Lian, Yurif, they're actually our portfolio founders. Thank you guys for being here. Collectively, our companies have raised 178 million, and the total value of our companies is now worth 1.2 billion. As part of this mission, this event is brought to you by Startup Academy. Startup Academy is a free resource. Think of it like Udemy, but for founders. It's a free resource for Iterative, built for aspiring and early stage founders figuring things out. So inside, you can see the screenshot. You'll find resources like, and I think some of you already signed up, which is pretty cool. But inside, you'll find resources like how to tell if your startup idea is solving an important problem, which we'll talk about today. How to stress test your idea so that you don't spend months building something that nobody wants. And how to avoid common startup traps. So one example is you copy an idea from the US, thinking users in USA, in Southeast Asia will want it, things like that. So our resources are everything that you see on Star Academy is created by a founder who've built real companies. They raised over 700 million. It's practical, honest, and just made to help you move faster. If this is your first Iterative event, I wanted to quickly spend some time to talk about agenda. Because it is one of our most popular, and I just wanted to quickly share. So right now we're in like the welcome and introductions phase. The next maybe 10 to 15 minutes, and we are a little bit ahead of time, which is good. We are gonna spotlight Hsu Ken, who is here. He is going to talk about what makes a startup problem important. So we're gonna spend maybe 10 to 15 minutes just to talk about it. Our portfolio founders, if you're here and you want to jump in, feel free to. This is like a really casual event. And then for the rest of the event, we're going to spend most of the time actually going through into your ideas. Now, selected participants will be invited to share your ideas. And then Hsu Ken's going to help to refine. And then he'll ask you more questions. I will be talking a little bit more about how to go about it after the sharing session, but just wanted to give a quick heads up. And then we wrap up by 7:30. Okay, now we're gonna move on into the sharing session. So Hsu Ken, are you here? I think I saw you in the chat.
I'm here. I am always trolling the chat.
Great.
You want me to talk about this?
Yes, you created this table. So
I did create this table. Yes.
yeah, talk a little bit about it.
Okay, so maybe this will set the context for kind of what we're going to be doing tonight. So one of the things that we talk a lot about at Iterative, and I hear a lot of people, founders, kind of talk about, is they're always trying to do TAM calculations. So they feel like VCs want to know about TAM, and they're like, how do I make my TAM bigger? TAM means total addressable market. And at Iterative, we more or less don't talk about TAM that much. And the reason why we don't talk about TAM is there's many Iterative founders on this call. One of the first things you'll learn about TAM is you can basically make the number as large as you want. And so TAM numbers are just kind of like, people are just making up giant TAM numbers. And so if I was making investments solely off of kind of like people's TAM numbers, then I don't think I'd be a very good investor. Um, so the thing that we end up talking about kind of more, and I think it's also hard if you're starting a company and you're trying to kind of do some TAM calculation, and you're like, does this work? Does this not work? And so the thing that we invest off of, which may be helpful for you guys as you're thinking about kind of problems that you should be working on, is I think about how important a problem is. And if a problem is really important, then there's going to be a large market for it. And so the two dimensions that I look at are how many people experience the problem that you're trying to solve, and how painful is it for any kind of individual person. So if there's a lot of people that experience the problem that you're trying to solve, you're in reasonable shape. And if for each of those individual people it's super painful, then you're going to be in really, really good shape. And so you can just kind of think about that as like a shorthand of just kind of like thinking about this. And this 2x2 is maybe kind of like an easy kind of like way to kind of like think about it. So if a lot of people, many people experience the problem and it's very painful, then you have a very, very large market. I think about this in terms of like, I don't know, Apple. It's like people want to stay connected as they move around, and if they can't stay connected, that's kind of a really big problem. And so Apple's an enormous company, right? Tesla's an enormous company. So you're kind of like in those buckets. Um, if you are looking at the bottom left, this is obviously kind of like the one you don't want to be in, which is very few people experience the problem, and it's like a minor annoyance. And I don't have examples for here because basically none of these companies survive, and you guys wouldn't know any of them. So if you're working on a product for kind of a very few amount of people, and it's just kind of a minor annoyance, you're just not going to get very far. And then the two other quadrants are interesting. So if you look at the many people experience the problem, but annoying bucket, this is kind of an interesting kind of like place to kind of like do. And so basically the thing you're looking for is, hey, is this thing kind of like annoying enough? And is there enough people that experience kind of the problem? And then if it's painful for a very few amount of people, that can still also be okay, but it needs to be really painful. And the kind of canonical example I give here, which I'm just saying to kind of prove a point, is if you have the cure for cancer, the number of people that actually have cancer as a total population is actually kind of like not that high. But for each individual person, it's an immense, I mean, horrible kind of like thing that kind of like happened. And so obviously this is kind of like a place. And so you can think about kind of your problems in these buckets. And basically everybody is trying to get to the top right bucket. And so sometimes you work on a problem that a lot of people have that seems annoying, and then you find out it's actually very painful, then you're going to be in really good shape. Sometimes you find out that you have a few people have this problem and you think it's painful, and then it turns out actually a lot more people kind of have that problem, and then you're also in kind of really good shape. And so again, these things are not perfect sciences, and there's no way to know for sure kind of like, hey, is your idea going to be $100 billion company? I have no idea. Nobody knows. And honestly, people that I know who have kind of started kind of like very large companies didn't know up until the point the company was kind of like very large. So I think we're trying to just arm you with shorthands that you can use in a practical nature to kind of like think about the problems that you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
Good?
Yeah. So I know you said no one really knows, but
Yeah.
as a founder, are there ways for you to gauge, or yeah, like how would people best like
Yeah.
understand? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what June is alluding to is um, that I often get asked like, "Hey, how do I know if my idea is $1 billion idea?" And they're like, "How many users do I need to get?" Or like, "How much of like kind of like this?" And there's just no shorthand answer. I mean, if there was, I would love to tell everybody, and all of our jobs would be kind of a lot easier, but there just isn't. So, given that there's kind of like no kind of like concrete single way to kind of like do this, the thing that you end up kind of like you should be kind of like doing, and we made this mistake when we started, is you want to and I'm very kind of science driven, that's kind of my background, but basically you want to run experiments so that you can gather information to suggest you are in one of these buckets. So if you think, hey, I'm working on this problem, here's what my kind of startup does, and you think a few people experience this problem and it's very painful, then what I'd suggest you do, you don't have to start a company, you don't have to build a product, you don't have to do all of that stuff, but go to those few people and see if you can sell your product to them. And if you can't sell your product to them, then you can, you can't conclude, but that suggests that maybe the problem is either not as painful as you thought because they're not buying the thing that you want, or that maybe that's not the right group of people to kind of like actually kind of like want that thing. Um, and so a lot of what we kind of do, and this is what we kind of collectively call validation, which is basically the process of going out into the real world and trying to get information to kind of like back up what your hypotheses are. And when you start working on an idea and you're looking at this table, you probably have a hypothesis for which one of the quadrants you are in, but you want to back up that hypothesis with kind of like actual kind of like data. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to move on to the next slide. I think it's a continuation. You basically, I think you explained this earlier. There's like type 1 to type 4. And I think I remember reading your article. You're like, you want to make sure that you're in type 1 and not type 4. Right?
Yeah. Hold on. I'm forgetting what types I coded this to. Yeah. I mean, look, obviously, and this is just the quadrants, right? So type 4 is basically the bottom left quadrant. You just don't want to be there, right? And I think the one thing that's interesting is this is probably the biggest limiting factor for the success of a lot of startups. It doesn't matter if you're like the best founder on the planet. If you are in type 4, which is the bottom left, you're not going to get that far. Just people just don't want what you're kind of like selling. And so I think this is June. This is the whole quadrant thing I was kind of talking about here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to start calling on people since we have iterative founders here.
So many.
What, any reactions?
I thought I would react to people's startup ideas. So I don't have anything to say, but yeah, I think also, I think the other thing too, maybe if I could add one thing, is that I think the best ideas are when many people have the problem, but people don't realize that. So I think a lot of times, like there's very common problems that everyone realizes everyone has. Like, for example, I'm in ed tech. So one thing is like, oh, people don't have personalized education. But kind of like an offshoot of that is maybe like, oh, corporate onboarding is hard, or like education about this particular thing is hard that everyone has to go through, or standardized testing is hard. Like just like a slightly more specific thing that still is very broad, is people don't realize.
What Charles says kind of jogs something in June. Maybe this is kind of what you're getting at. So the thing that it ends up, if you were forcing me to whether choose the top left quadrant or the bottom right quadrant as a place to start, the general consensus is you want to be in the bottom right. And the reason why is if you are working on a problem that seems like a few people have, but is very painful for that small group of people, it tends to be easier to find more people that have that problem than it is to get a large group of people to basically give a shit, give more, like care more about a problem. So I would rather start with a problem that people really care about, although maybe it's kind of like not very many people, it seems like not very many people kind of like have the problem, than a problem that a lot of people have, but like nobody really cares that much. And the reason why this ends up being the case is if a small minority, a small group of people that really care about the problem will give you some sort of like pull, and they will talk to you, they will engage with you, they'll talk to you about kind of like what kind of how they want it solved and why it's important to them. They'll like engage with you, and so you can kind of like have this feedback loop of whether you're on the right track. If you are working on a problem that everybody kind of faces but is like mildly annoying, basically nobody wants to talk to you because it's not a big enough problem for any of them to like individually kind of like care. And so it's very hard to get any kind of like feedback working in those spaces. And so most of the time what we do at Iterative, if we find kind of our startups are in these buckets, we actually are trying to kind of pare down the group of people they are trying to address in order to increase kind of like how painful it is for each individual person.
Nice. Okay. I want to move on to the live reaction portion of the event because we have, as I mentioned, we have quite a bit of numbers, a big number of ideas. Okay, before we do that though, wanted to quickly share, I guess just like ground rules and housekeeping. The goal of this session is to help you to shape your idea further. It is not for you to receive the feedback. You might receive feedback from Hsu Ken, but that's not the main point of this session. And it's also not the time for you to ask whether we will invest. The only way to know that is to apply to the program. So that's one. Number two, and this is important, as I mentioned, we receive quite a huge influx of ideas. So it is unlikely we will be able to get to everyone. We will try our best, but it is unlikely. So if you sign up as a participant and you didn't get to share today, and you still want our feedback, and the reason why we're asking you to reach out to us is because Maybe after this session, you're like, I already know what to do. Or maybe your idea changed. Or maybe after this session, you're like, I don't really want their feedback, whatever, right? But at the end of the event, if you still want our feedback and you didn't get to share today, email me and Hsu Ken. We will get back to you with written thoughts. If you are selected, I have a slide for each and every one of you. Basically just unmute and share your idea within 1 minute or so. Hsu Ken, and again, we have quite a few portfolio founders here, so I may just call on them to share their thoughts as well. Quick note is that because I'm keeping an eye on time, so I may need to cut you off so that we can get to the next participant. Please don't take it personally. And again, this is just so that we can get to as many ideas as possible in the next 1.5 hours plus. Okay.
So June, can I just add one kind of like bit? And June kind of tried to hit this at the top. The point of this meeting is the point of this event is to hopefully help you with your ideas. And so I kind of say this in some of our other events. My job is the thing I'm going to do my best to avoid is my job here is not to kind of tear down your idea and kind of tell you all the ways why it doesn't kind of like work. My job is to hear your idea and then see if I'm going to ask a lot of questions and see if I can kind of build on top of kind of the idea that you're kind of like working on. It's very easy for investors, I know, because they've done this to me all the time, to kind of just tear down ideas. It's really easy. It's the easiest thing an investors can do. And so but sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. But my job here is to try to kind of like take your idea and kind of riff on it and kind of like try to help develop it a little bit more, maybe kind of take it into places that I think was kind of interesting. But I want to caveat this and make sure you kind of say this, that you guys are the founders of your companies. And so even if I think something is a good idea, if you don't think it's a good idea, do not do it. Absolutely don't do it. My job here is to hopefully kind of like help you guys think about stuff. But again, this is your guys' company. And so you guys should kind of like think what I'm saying should make sense to you and all of that kind of like stuff. So please don't just like run out and be like, Hsu Ken said this, you should do that. I'm wrong all the time. So please.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just quickly resharing it because Martha has actually been on the back end, like moving slides up based on who is here so that we don't waste time. But okay, I will call on your name. There will be a slide for each idea. If this is your slide, and again, just look at the slide if you hear your name, because they are quite a few similar names. So just check that. If that is you, if that's your idea, just unmute yourself to share your idea. If there's no response within 30 seconds, probably shorter, we are moving on. Okay, Hsu Ken, ready?
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, are you here?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, so businesses are spending more money than ever on ads, but getting less attention. Most ads get skimmed in under 2 seconds, right? So meanwhile, the paper food packaging takeaways used by 90% of food merchants in the whole Indonesia are still left either blank, styrofoam, or plastic. So we want to replace them with paper packagings printed with ads, brands inside out, and putting brand in target customer hands for at least 15 to 20 minutes while they enjoy their meal. We can target as precisely as one apartment building, one campus, or one office tower. And we have already ran campaigns with Titipku, one of the YC-backed startups, and also Bungkus, one of Iterative's portfolios. And the results are 1 out of 10 people who viewed ads in Mailboard actually engage with the ads like scanning the QR code inside. So after this is continuously validated, we are moving to like app-based where businesses can, set up a campaign in the app. So, but right now we are still very like manual stuff. Yeah. So that's the idea. And what do you think?
Okay, maybe let me kind of ask kind of like questions and stuff. Who do you think would want this? Like what kind of brands? There's lots of kind of like people want to do ads, right? So what kind of brands do you think?
The way I see it right now, the type of brand that wants to use Mailboard is stuff
Yeah.
like FMCG, the big brands, or
Okay.
even movie promotion and stuff like that.
Okay. And are you sharing kind of like the ad revenue with kind of the takeaway, whatever the restaurant is that's doing the takeaway? I'm guessing so, right?
Right now, we give the boxes for free, so we kind of help them.
Oh, so they get the box. So okay, so you don't share the revenue, but you give them kind of free packaging, and so that's not a cost to them.
Yep.
Okay, and then has there been any kind of like pushback to like, hey, I don't want your marketing on my food?
Yeah, totally. Couple of pushback, but then we
Okay.
kind of sort of like find someone who want to.
Oh, sorry. And then the people that push back, why did they push back?
They say it doesn't fit their own branding. Even though they don't use any branding on their their current branches, but yeah, we kind of get different kind of pushbacks.
See. By the way, the take on kind of like this is not part of our branding, but they don't actually use branding. That is their branding, and
Yeah.
so that's like, but that's a different kind of a set. Okay, maybe kind of the thing that I would think about to kind of like flesh this out more is I think you have a kind of a thing, or you're basically trying to market the companies that probably want this are probably the same companies that they're looking for the same kind of target market as the people who are kind of like buying the food, right? And so there's like a spray and pray version of this, which I don't think kind of like works very well, where you're just kind of like people are just kind of like throwing this out there. But FMCG kind of makes sense to me because I feel like if you are trying to sell to the people who kind of like order food, they probably also kind of do FMCG. So you have to have kind of like this like overlap of kind of like customers that are kind of like in that way. Um, uh, okay, and then you're trying to kind of sell to the and how do you approach the kind of FMCG now?
Right now, it is actually is a problem for us because
Yeah.
as you see, we are only piloted to like Titipku and Bungkus as very startup companies.
Yeah.
We are trying to reach out to FMCG, but yeah, we get a lot of no's and whatnot, you know. Because yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's probably the thing that you're going to want to kind of figure out the most, right?
Yeah.
Hey, why does Bunkus want to do this? What's their rationale? What do they get out of this? Free packaging.
I mean, I give them free campaign because I want to test out the idea.
Yeah.
Stephen was like, "Oh, yeah, sure, let's try it."
Got it. Okay, maybe and June, I can say this, and then you can open it up to the other editor founders if there's anything. The thing that I would think about with this kind of like these kinds of propositions is you basically have a two-sided marketplace. So you have a side of kind of people who are kind of selling the food, in which you need to get them kind of their incentivized kind of aligned such that they want to do this. And then you have kind of like a set of people who are kind of buying ads, and you need to kind of make it so that this is an enticing thing for them. And so you have to kind of figure out kind of like both sides of this, right? And I think the thing that you will have to kind of like hit in on is what is the kind of main value proposition to kind of like both people, and then what is the set of people that really kind of like want something like this. I think FMCG is kind of like a reasonable spot where I would try to dig even kind of deeper into this. And is there kind of like very specific use cases that you think this would kind of work abnormally kind of well for? There's also you were mentioning like a location aspect of this that I think
Yeah,
is kind of interesting.
totally. Yep.
And so to me, I'm like, what marketing campaigns have like really like geo is a really important thing that you can kind of like play on, right? But there is also kind of the fundamental question of like, does this just work better than an Instagram ad? But you are competing against them on some level. But you have to kind of figure out both sides of this, right? And it's not obvious to me which side is actually harder. So I don't know. I would try to kind of figure this out.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's an interesting idea.
Okay, great. Thank you again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, opening up to the founders before I move on.
Just a quick thought. I'm from real estate background. I think this could be interesting angle to add some kind of property location-based promotions. Some apartment buildings wanted to, because people usually eat around certain areas.
Yeah.
They usually tend to like those areas. So there might be an angle to promote real estate through this channel.
Oh, that's a really good point, right? Because there's a lot of, I mean, I'm in Singapore right now, but real estate agents are constantly putting flyers in my kind of thing because I feel like they know the building is kind of desirable. And so they're trying to do it that way. And so this could be another way to kind of get into those. It's just kind of talking about. But basically what you want to do is that's like a very specific case, and I would try it out. And you want to get a couple of these and then kind of try them out and kind of see if somebody kind of really kind of like bites on these. So anyway.
Okay, got it. Thanks, Yuri. Thank you for the feedback.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Yurif. Okay, moving on. Cousin Ye, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. I wasn't expecting to be called out. Sorry. Exactly. So today, the problem that we're facing is that in today's social media age, more and more people are actually looking to build a side hustle, and we're living in an age though where the creators do have issues to launch their own brands because existing platforms like Shopify and so on, they're quite technical, so it does limit also their own identity and their brands. So the idea is that basically the creators can build their own storefront within just a few minutes, and they can put everything they monetize, their physical, digital, affiliated products onto one platform, and they can promote them through curated boards. And at a later stage, once we have more traffic and also more data insights, we also want to onboard agencies and brands. So that will also help them to digitalize all these manual efforts that you usually have in influencer marketing campaigns. Because right now, the people that I've talked to, they have a bunch of fragmented tools. They're using a bunch of fragmented licenses, fragmented links here, this link there, and everything. I want to put everything onto one hub, basically.
Okay, maybe kind of reactions to this. I think good and bad news. I think what you're thinking about is true, and that's why TikTok is trying to make TikTok Shop, right? And a lot of these social networks are trying to build commerce as part of their platform. And so I think your observation is spot on. Like that is kind of this, right? And so I think this is kind of like happening in a lot of those kinds of places. And so the thing I kind of think about is, sorry, and maybe kind of broader for people. Sometimes I think when there's like mashup products ish, where there's kind of like, okay, storefront and then kind of like social network and kind of this kind of stuff. The thing I always think about is there are storefronts and there are social networks. And so then the trick ends up kind of being, it's like, okay, well, the storefronts build a social network, or will the social networks build the kind of storefronts? Or is neither of them going to do it? And then somebody is going to kind of like thread the kind of like needle. That can be challenging to kind of like do. And so if I was working on this idea, the thing I would think about is there some group of people where like TikTok shop is not going to be kind of like a good place for them to kind of like sell for some reason. Maybe there's some kind of product, maybe there's some sort of influencer or some sort of products that it doesn't kind of like work on these places. And so you can try to kind of find some kind of differentiation. But could be challenging to kind of go head to head with kind of like TikTok, since they already kind of are like, have so much kind of like whatever. And so I think I would kind of like think about this. The obvious company that did this and became very successful is basically OnlyFans, right? That was like a specific kind of like transaction and a very specific type of kind of content that TikTok was not going to kind of like allow. And so OnlyFans kind of like carved out this like niche of a kind of thing, and it became kind of very kind of thing. Now, are there more like that? That might be kind of interesting to kind of dig into, right? So is there other kind of commerce? Is there other kinds of stuff that kind of like doesn't fit? And maybe you can attack TikTok on the like video format kind of part. And TikTok is like a very specific kind of like format. And so maybe there's other types of kind of formats that are up there that kind of would lend itself to this. And so I mean, maybe kind of think about some of those kind of places. But I think you're trying to kind of find some space in between.
Yeah, thank you for that. Do I have time to just quickly reply to that, or do we have to move on?
We have
It's up to
move
June.
We have to move on.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. But if you have if you want to add on, drop it in the chat.
Yeah.
Founders
Put
will.
stuff in the chat, guys. The chat is awesome. I feel like it's super engaged. So put it in the chat.
Can I say one
thank
thing? I just want to jump in and say, like,
Yeah.
Immediately here, I see like there's actually 3 problems too. So I think it's like
Yeah.
too technical, limit identity, or too scattered. And so one of the things I usually recommend is like just focus on one of those problems and take it to like 11. Like make it so easy, or make it so expressive, or so not scattered, and see which one is the best.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Okay, thank you, Cousin. Next, Kaden. I think she already left. So we're gonna skip her. Eugene?
Hey guys, yeah, I'm here.
Go for it.
Okay, one second. Let me just enable my camera so you can see me. Okay. Hello. Yeah, so hey there. So loneliness is the new smoking, but way less cool and just as deadly. Dating apps and social media seem to be having the exact opposite effect, with isolation, divorce rates spiking, and chatbots, it's a new wave. They look to have some long-term problems of their own. So learning from all the dick-laden mistakes of our predecessors like chat roulette, Bumble, and Tinder, we'd like to help people find their human kindred spirits through low-friction, fun social experiences curated by, you guessed it, AI. Starting with Chat Royale, it's a social discovery survival game, filtering players into ever more intimate chats through a series of exciting choices, with the last chat standing winning the game. So movies or music, you pick movies and bam, everyone who thinks the Spotify playlist is a personality, they disappear. Tarantino or Marvel, you hit Tarantino, another wave disappears to talk about the miracle of post-credit scenes. This keeps going until it's just you and that one other person on the entire planet who agrees that Vincent Vega was the interesting one, not Jules. This person gets it, but you'll need a premium account if you want to speak with them ever again. So yeah, this is it. We've actually, funnily enough, built the prototype this weekend for a hackathon. So if anybody wants to try it, I'll drop a message later in chat. All right.
And sorry, just to kind of like ask a couple of questions. This is mainly, I think, friendship, but I mean, I guess you're not limiting it, right? Like,
It could be
if people end up
anything.
dating,
Yeah.
It's fine, right?
Exactly.
Okay, and
so
then
I think if you make it like
strangers?
geolocation based, then it becomes more dating, and if you keep it broad,
and then is it like real time? Like you're answering these questions in real time, and the hope is to kind of do it that way? Is there some async kind of part where you're kind of
we could do it async, but our thought was to actually do it real time to kind of contain it into almost like HQ trivia to contain it. So it's not something that you're just constantly doing and kind of sidestepping this whole addictive thing, but like people gather at a certain time. It's only like 10-15 minutes a day, and then you move on with your life.
So the thing I was kind of thinking about, I remember HQ trivia. The thing I was thinking about was like if you're trying to do it synchronously, then you have kind of you need enough people with kind of a right amount of kind of time to kind of have the experience, and that's kind of can be a challenging problem to kind of like have. So if you do, by the way, I do think there is magical things that happen when it's synchronous, and so I think that is as an experience kind of like is a thing to kind of like shoot for, but challenging to kind of get off the ground maybe initially. An async version of this is much easier to kind of like pull off, and you could put some sort of limits on it. So it's kind of like, hey, you get, it closes once a week or something like that. So maybe everybody gets a week, and you can kind of close it off or whatever. It also dawns on me that you can actually kind of, you can almost. The experience is not as good for sure, but you can almost kind of pull this off in kind of like some surveys and that kind of stuff, right? So you have set of these kind of questions or whatever, and people are basically filling out a questionnaire and kind of a survey. And at the end of the week, you're kind of pairing up everybody who kind of like had 100% kind of like thing, and you can build this funnel, and you can kind of do that, right? And you can kind of bootstrap your way into this idea and kind of see how people kind of interact and react to it. The thing I think about with consumer products all the time is consumer products and B2B have this very clear delineation where I think consumer products are like, it's very home run hitting. And what I mean by that is they are very hard to predict. And so when I talk to kind of people who are thinking about consumer ideas, I'm like, just optimize for experimentation and trying stuff. Like that should be your primary optimization. Experts are basically useless. So you just want to kind of like try stuff. B2B is like the other side of the funnel where most B2B ideas are like, you think through it, you're like, okay, yeah, this person has this job, they don't like doing this, it costs them this much, and so we make this thing cheaper, like very logical. And so I actually think the best consumer ideas are very polarizing. Some set of people needs to think they're like the worst thing to happen to civilization, and then some set of people need to like get it. And then B2B is basically the opposite. They should not be kind of polarizing. But in this case, I feel like you can actually kind of pull this off. I mean, it sounds like you're kind of hacking together a thing, but you can actually pull it off pretty quickly and then just see how people react to it. You can play around with the questions. Maybe you do it on a weekly basis or every couple of days and kind of see how people kind of interact. I think that's it's like a fun, interesting experiment to kind of like run.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, it took us about a week to build a prototype. And I agree, actually, the async part is super easy. So we kind of had some inklings about that as well by building chatbots in terms of, so for the people that played, we can build a chatbot based on their profile and they can then kind of play on. But yeah, the async part is nice. And yeah, I think we can definitely experiment, shoot it on Reddit, see how people respond, and then take it from there. Got it.
Sorry, one last thing, June, and I know we want to move on. With this kind of consumer stuff, for everybody who has consumer ideas, you're almost always kind of better off just trying to get it in the hands of people that potentially want it than talking to any supposed experts, including me, right? Like the market is always going to kind of tell you how this kind of like works, right? And so anything I'm saying is just how do I help you get there faster, I think is kind of the biggest thing. And then what ends up happening is you just iterate a bunch, right? Where you like put this quiz out and you're like, okay, these questions don't really work. Okay, maybe we try these questions. Okay, these people had this really nice experience. Okay, how do we do that? And you're like, so consumer is very kind of like iterative. And so, yeah, but fun.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eugene. Moving on, is Patarathon here?
Yeah. Hi. Can you wait? Have I opened my camera? Okay.
Yep,
Yeah,
we
you
can
have-
see.
Yeah. So Patraton Watanapong. You can call me Kong because like Thai always have a long name. But yeah. So I built this tool based on the pain point where I've talked to a lot of SMEs, especially online retailers who sells on multiple e-commerce platform like Shopee, TikTok, Lazada. So they all told me that they have to create their own Excel sheets and pulling like the sales data manually to update their stocks, which going to cost them like human errors. And then after that, they have to create their another sheets just to create like charts and like some BI dashboard just to see the insight of their sales. And sometimes there are a lot of like they spend a lot of time creating that, and also there's a lot of like human errors, of course. So that's why I'm planning to create this product where we take the sales data from all the e-commerce platform automatically, real time, and update it into our inventory on the back end. And after that, the business owner can kind of like chat into their own like into like our business account chat app, like inside their chat app, like Lines or WhatsApp. So they can ask about like their inventory, like how much is their sales last month, or like which SKU like have the risks on like running out before next week or some those kind of analysis. And also it's going to be alerting business owners to like restock whenever like there's like whenever they need to restock based on the sales trend. Yeah, so basically business owners just need to like add the business chat into their chat app, and then they can get their own insights on their sales. Yeah.
Just maybe reactions to this. For SMEs is a very large segment of, and include lots of different businesses. It's like almost by definition kind of the long tail, right? Is there a smaller segment within SMEs that the problem that you're trying to solve is like especially bad, right? So I'm sure there's some SMEs who only sell like 5 products a month and they don't care about this, right? So like I'm guessing like volume changes this completely, and so you're probably looking for people who with like high volume, low dollar amount, maybe?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess.
So most of them I've talked to is mostly I'm selling snacks online and
Okay.
some food product where they also have like some expiration date,
Yep.
or like coffee beans where they have like these
Oh,
times where like this beans is going to be smelled the best. Yeah. So
yep.
anything that have like time related where they need to learn, like they need to get an alert on restocking.
Got it. Okay. So for everybody here, that those details are like super, super important, right? So we are trying to kind of find this. Anybody could conceivably use his product, but we're trying to kind of find the subset of people who are like especially kind of sensitive to this problem. And those people are, they do high volume and it's perishable. And the reason why perishable kind of matters is because the stock and inventory kind of matters a lot more, and kind of the decay of kind of your stock matters a lot more. If I'm selling canned goods and or not, like stuff that doesn't perish or whatever, I can stomach a little overstock here, you know, a little bit here. Like it's not that big of a deal. But if you lose a lot of money to kind of perishable, then that becomes kind of like quite a problem. And so that ends up being kind of like actually a very important kind of thing, Kong. And so that's something you kind of like want to put in here. Secondary kind of like question here. Um, uh, when you are kind of like working on this, do you think of this as like, have you pitched this to people?
Not yet, because I'm
Okay.
still like trying to validate the idea, because I used to have like my previous idea and I did
Yeah.
pitch to a lot of brands, and then
Yeah.
like they're not interested
Yeah.
because it was going to increase their sales, but they
Yeah.
told me that they have a problem with operation. So then I kind of like
I see.
moved toward operation pain points. Yeah.
I mean, I would try to sell this to people, right? I mean, that's how you kind of validate it. But the thing I was going to try to kind of say is, you can always pitch stuff as like revenue generating, which is, hey, use my product, make more money, or hey, use my product and save money. And make more money seems to work better, like in our experience, kind of with our portfolio and stuff. And so, if you're trying to sell this to people, I wonder if you should try kind of selling it as, I mean, it's the way you're framing it here sounds like a cost savings thing, but there's a version of this of how you can talk about your product that is a revenue generation thing, which is the missed sales part. And so you can actually try to kind of like, when you're selling to SMEs, pick 10 of them and sell cost savings, pick 10 and sell kind of like revenue generation, kind of see which set kind of like responds more. And that could be an interesting kind of thing to kind of like track. But I would go after perishable, reasonable volume. It could be low volume, but maybe perishable and high value items, because they really don't want to kind of like have that perish, right? So I don't know.
Yeah,
Can I ask a little bit more? So how about if I move toward like cost saving, but more like less operations, so more so you can focus more on like scaling and growing your business. Like if I rephrase that, would that make a little bit more sense?
Maybe. I think the idea is just like, how do you frame it in terms of like, I'm going to use my product, make more money, right? And so I think that's the thing. Charles, you had something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I'm so interested in this missed sales thing because I think that's leaving money on the table, and that's like you can
Yeah.
charge whatever you want because that's 100% profit almost. And I'd be like, if you talk to your people, I would ask them like, hey, when have you missed sales because of stockouts? When does that happen? Why does that
Oh,
happen?
yeah.
Because that's like super interesting. And then I think second is you can always like sort of prototype this stuff. That's what raising money might be for if you do kind of go down this path, because you could say things like, I guarantee you won't miss sales from stockouts. And you could sort of like worst case, like know that you're going to lose like $1,000 or something. But you know, will people actually sign up for that?
Sorry, just to expand on kind of Charles's idea, which is a trick we like quite a lot in Charles's. If people didn't kind of catch that, to get first couple people involved, you can actually just have like a guarantee. Like if you use our product and you miss out on kind of sales because there's no stock, I will give you money, right? And that's just marketing kind of cost. And you can see how much it kind of like costs, whether that gets in and like this kind of thing. And so there's ways that you can kind of do this. Now, I wouldn't do that out of maybe your personal bank account, and that's why you raise money from dirty venture capitalists like me. And so you use our money to do this kind of stuff. But that's basically kind of where Charles is going, is like, hey, I'm so confident in this. So you get a couple people on this way, see how it works. Like,
There's a program from Iterative where you can validate ideas for $10,000 or less. This would be like a
I already
great class for
applied
that.
for that.
Yeah.
and by the way, for everybody here, that's kind of what the $10,000 is for, is to do this kind of stuff, right? Like that's the whole point. So yeah. All right.
All right, moving on. Ilya?
Yep, it's me. Hello,
Hey.
everyone. Yeah, my name is Ilya Smyslov. We built the bug bounty platform. So the cyber attacks in Southeast Asia, especially in Thai, grow rapidly, so fast, and company really don't know what to do with that. What to do with the hackers, what to do with so expensive penetration testing to check in the systems of threats, of vulnerabilities, or something like that. And we're starting to build a platform backed by the National Cybersecurity Agency of Thailand to connect the ethical hackers with the entrepreneurs and some big companies and something like to find and fix vulnerabilities, because it's not too expensive, like making a penetration testing, red teaming testing, and all the stuff around. And we get a commission, some royalties from the service, and that's all.
Hey, Ilya, do these kinds of things kind of like exist? It's basically a bug bounty kind of like platform, right? Which I think kind of exists. Is there something kind of unique about Thailand or kind of what you guys are kind of doing that is maybe kind of like a different kind of spin?
Sorry, last part. Can't hear it.
Yeah, sorry. Maybe the thing I'm trying to kind of like understand is, I think I feel like I've heard of some bug bounty kind of platforms before. And so I'm
Right.
trying to kind of understand, is there something unique about kind of Southeast Asia, maybe the type of cyber attacks that you're going after, the type of cyber attacks that happen in Thailand that you think is kind of like unique to this? Or maybe I'll let you answer
Yeah,
that question.
yeah. There is unique in Southeast Asia because nobody make it in Southeast Asia because of regulation, some government's regulation, and we have a support from Thai governments and have all the cards in our hands to make it right now.
Sorry, what is the regulations kind of like here? Like, what is the actual regulation?
Regulations, as an example, it's a PDPA. It's the same like GDPR in Europe, and it regulate the hackers, the ethical hackers, what they can do.
I see. Sorry, so you're saying there's some I mean, there's obviously laws against kind of hacking people, but why does that law prevent the hackers from kind of like doing this kind of like white hat kind of like stuff for enterprises? I mean, I guess an enterprise and then can kind of just like come to some agreement. No.
Enterprises right now in Thai, especially in Thai, I can
Okay.
tell, yeah, they don't think about it right now. They just focusing on a not to outsource it, to make it on-prem inside the company, to make that penetration testing and all the stuff. But because of Thai National Cybersecurity Agency wanna grow the cybersecurity market here and around, they trying to make PDPA more more flexible to it, flexible to hackers, and they're looking for grows the level of skills, the experience level of a hacker in Thailand.
Got it. Hey, do you think this is something that it's going to be easier to get kind of like hackers on the platform? Or you think it's easier to get enterprises on the platform?
Again, sorry, like.
Do you think it's easier to get hackers on the platform or enterprises on the platform? You kind of need both, right? So you need some hackers, you need some enterprises.
It's both. It's easy both because there is not a lot of hackers in Thai, especially in Bangkok, and there is one big community. And we spoke with all these hackers. They want to do something. They want to hack something. They want to make some money, and they are ready to come to us. For sure, we need to make some events like CTF, it's capture the flag, some maybe boot camps, to find some experts from United States, from Europe, or some countries, and making events here. There is a first part. The second part for enterprise and big business, governments can help us on this part is first. The second part, we know all the guys who make cybersecurity here in the big companies like CP Group and AIS, all that. And they're looking for, we onboard like 7 enterprise company in Thai, and they're looking for it. They just wait.
Got it. Okay. Maybe the thing that I would kind of like to hear is I think the hardest part is kind of getting the companies kind of like on board. And so I would probably focus on kind of getting the companies. If this is very new for those companies, I would probably try to kind of like focus on a specific kind of vulnerability that maybe the companies are, maybe it's kind of like important, but it's a little bit smaller and they're kind of less exposed because they probably want to try out your platform. And so they kind of don't want you to kind of try to be hacking kind of like very important kind of like things. And so you have to build some trust. I think whenever it comes to cybersecurity, there's just a lot of trust that kind of has to be built with kind of enterprises. And so maybe if you can identify some smaller kind of vulnerabilities that are maybe kind of like on the safer end, you can work your way into kind of the maybe kind of more critical ones that are a little bit more sensitive. And then it sounds like you have kind of kind of the hacker communities and stuff. And so if you start offering them kind of like money to kind of do some of these things, that seems like pretty straightforward. So I think enterprises are probably the place to kind of like spend the most of your time. And then I would try to kind of, you have to do a fair bit of education to help them understand kind of like what are the best vulnerabilities to kind of use your platform for, and how to kind of like think about it and target them.
We also want to make like penetration as a service with the same like a Cobalt, and maybe it can solve it.
Sorry,
Charles,
we have to move on. Okay, Charles, 10 seconds, go.
I thought it was also interesting that you said Thai hackers are bored. So like, is there not
Yeah.
enough stuff to hack in Thailand? That's so interesting. And for this, actually, maybe you do want global hackers. Maybe your thing is like, I can bring you the best hackers from the US to hack your thing, not these like Thai hackers.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Yeah, it might be the companies don't actually care about where the hackers are from, right? So
Okay, we have to move on. Thank you, Ilya.
Thank you.
Moving on to Harish Rahul / Lucas Do. I think they're co-founders.
Hi.
I think Lucas is here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so essentially, VC analysts are bottlenecked by time and mental strain when analyzing top of funnel slide decks to summarize and present to teams. So our solution analyzes slide decks and creates test sheets with automatically filled data from verified sources, and discrepancies are pointed out for analysts to point out red flags. So we're hoping that a solution like this would allow analysts to focus on high leverage activities such as relationship building and meeting clients. Yeah, and also, yeah, I can just maybe list out the problems we faced from talking to analysts before. So the first one is about the small thrifty VC market that we're looking at in Singapore, and then also the fact that our buyers are not our users. And that's a chicken and egg issue that we have. And then the last thing is that a lot of this VC scout work is actually outsourced for some of the VCs that we're working with. And that's another issue that we're looking at.
Wait, sorry. There's like so much kind of like, sorry, what were the last three things that you kind of like said? You said a lot of this work is outsourced, and then you were saying.
Yeah, I can go again. It's more of like the VCs that we're working in Asia, they are a lot more thrifty compared to their counterparts in the US. So that's the first
You
thing.
say thrifty?
As in the analysts themselves told us that the VCs they work for are more thrifty.
Okay.
With productivity tools, not with like investments. So another big thing is also the buyers, not our users. So the analysts are not.
Sorry, why are they not their users?
Because when you sell like a B2B SaaS product, it's not the analysts themselves that use it. It's more of like
but the organization is the user and the buyer, right?
In a way, yes. But I guess my partner was saying we should approach partners to buy into our solution so that their analysts could use it. Yeah. And the last one is about for some of the VCs that we talk to, a lot of this scout work, the tofu analysis is all done by scouts in overseas countries. And when the information comes back to Singapore,
how many people have you talked to?
We spoke to like three people.
Oh, yeah. It sounds like you talked to 3 people. Okay. This is a very easy thing to do. You need to talk to a lot more people. None of the things you said about VC is my impressions of kind of like how VCs run in kind of Southeast Asia, and I'm a VC in Southeast Asia. And so I think I would talk to a lot more people, kind of like try to get a better feel for kind of like who the kind of like VCs users are. The other thing I would kind of think about too is VCs work very, very differently amongst them, right? And so I think even within VCs, I would try to think about kind of like what VCs are going to kind of want to use kind of products like these. And you can kind of make that decision a bit based off of their strategy. And so like there's like, for example, Iterative is a high volume, low concentration investor, which means we invest in a large number of companies, but kind of smaller investment sizes, as opposed to like a Monks Hill that invests in like a very small number of companies, but kind of larger investment size. And so the way they work internally is completely different from the way we work internally. And so you can kind of like look at it kind of like this way. But I think I would try to kind of figure out kind of like what that is. And I think you're also trying to kind of think about a number of different problems. And so are you like, you're talking about kind of this data stuff. And so there's a kind of number of these. And so you want to narrow down, I think you want to talk to more people, you want to narrow down a little bit to try to find a initial kind of like initial hill to die on, but basically like what is a small subset of things where you're like, okay, this is the most painful thing, right? I'm going to just start here. And then you can kind of eat out from there. So if you can just like carve out some niche for yourself, and then you can kind of start expanding kind of like out from that. But I think you want to talk to kind of more companies, talk to more VCs, try to get a better feel for kind of like how these VCs kind of like how VCs work, because they all work very differently. And then try to kind of identify kind of like, okay, we're going to try to fit into this like one place. May
I ask if you have any suggestions for where should we start? Because there's a lot of VCs, a lot of different types, a lot of sectors, and like we're just wondering what's the best place to start for a product like this, which is like a slide deck analyzer for top of funnel use.
I mean, if people are trying to automate kind of slide deck kind of analyzing, you are looking for people who do kind of like high volume. They have to review a high volume of kind of like decks, right? And so I would look at kind of people's strategies and that kind of stuff to kind of like do that. And so I would probably kind of like start there. But I think the thing you're going to run into, I would probably kind of start there.
Sorry, what do you think we would run into? I'm just curious. Like, what's your?
Sorry, Lucas, we have to move on. Just drop your questions in the chat, and then we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Jack Chen.
Hi, Ken. Nice to meet you. So,
Are you still here, Jack?
Yeah, so the problem with this is there's 2 issues. University students, the freshies struggle with career because they lack of accessible mentorship from the student seniors. And at the same time, companies trying to target the student market face super high cost and extremely low ROI since traditional outreach is extremely fragmented. So our solution is Open Mentor. It's a free open mentorship platform that connects junior students with the senior students. This builds authentic engagement and trust. Then company-wise, then Open Mentor become the biggest go-to-market channel for them, or the talent sourcing into the entire Singapore university ecosystem, where we plan events and campaigns to reach out to 100,000 university students directly through this trusted community. So in 1 month, we launched our platform. We got about 250 student mentors, 2,000 juniors, and we partner with 30 school organizations and companies for events, including like Notion and Manners.
Sorry, there's a lot kind of in there. I think you're like a student mentorship platform. And so you connect students with mentors that have graduated from school?
No, the juniors with the seniors.
Oh,
The
so
year one,
you're
year two, yeah. So the year one, so the so-called seniors are mainly the year 3, year 4 ones.
okay.
Yeah.
And sorry, again, I didn't go to school here, and it's been a long time since I was in college. What do the year ones want to learn from the year twos?
Yeah, so like internship advice, career advice, interest, like it's mainly like internship is extremely hard to get, and they need more like a senior advice to break into the relevant roles they want to.
Why don't they talk to people who actually have those jobs, not the person who's 1 year ahead of them?
Yeah, so basically the ones that like for example, like people like you, for them talking to you, actually most of the seniors, they actually don't know how is the internship recruitment process was like. Like it's actually extremely like a competitive. The job market is super bad for people, and only those who are the seniors or those also another part of our group is a fresh graduate as well. So these people are the ones like the one giving the directly most relatable advice.
Okay. Charles, you work a lot in education and kind of like stuff. Any kind of quick takes on this?
Yeah, I think one thing about education is exactly what Hsu Ken's asking is like, what do people really want? A lot of times people don't want education, they want the outcome that comes with it. Like people don't want to learn math, they want to get like into college. So sometimes you can shortcut it. And so if there's some way to, if you know that what people really want is internships, that's there. If people really do want advice, I think that's interesting. That's my number one. Number two is also like, it's very difficult. Marketplaces are hard because there's two people. There's like buyer and seller. I think in this case, you kind of have three. You have buyer, seller, and like marketing person. So getting all three of those to go can be complicated, but you could. That's a good example for an experiment. So if you could, I think in this case, the hardest part to me is like, hey, will a company pay for this to do that? So if you can find one company to do that in that loop can demonstrate working once, I think you'd learn a lot from that experiment.
Right.
Maybe the quick thing I'll kind of add here is if internships is the primary thing that you're kind of going for, and I feel like everything with a lot of kind of college ends up monetizing through internships or job placement, then I feel like if everybody's trying to get advice on internships and 90% of the questions people are asking is how do I get an internship, then you should just make the platform a how to get an internship platform and just like help people get internships, because otherwise you're kind of doing this roundabout thing where you're like getting a bunch of people to give advice to each other, but they're all just saying the same thing and have the same problem, right? And it's like you could just directly do that.
Yeah, so actually that's two of our biggest monetization model. One is to help people get internship and try to monetize it. And another way is basically we run like campaigns for, like we run hackathon for Manners recently, and they pay us some money for us to run all the campaign events for them. And the outreach is directly to all the university students combined.
Also, while on top of internships, one thing I've learned that's very specific to this I never thought about was that actually the most successful internship companies, their customers are universities themselves. And that was an interesting insight because the universities have to report metrics on like how many students get internships. And so there are companies now that place interns, but the universities pay them. And I thought that was brilliant. And those companies have been very successful.
Right. Actually, all the university, their career office actually working with us directly for us to promote more about their stuff, because actually they realize that there's a bit of like lack in the space as well, because people are still not getting the internship. They're only working with the big companies, but how about the smaller ones? Yeah.
So if you can get them to pay you, I think that's a great revenue source.
Right. All right. Cool.
Okay, we need to move on. Thank you. Okay, I think Sean has left. Moving on to Wayne.
Hi. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. So yeah, my idea is an events marketplace specifically targeted towards brides who are planning their weddings. So currently the way brides would plan without getting an event planner is that they would be looking through Facebook Marketplace or through Google Maps, finding different venues, different suppliers. And even then, it's hard to verify this trust, especially in the Philippines, wherein usually the terms of payment is down payment upfront, or sometimes even vendors don't get paid well. So now, or don't get paid even after serving this, even after the event. So this is the place where we want to bridge everything, wherein like these brides can find these suppliers all in one place with all the details, And these we also want, one of the key things I think is the escrow system, is wherein we can hold these brides can pay the suppliers upfront upon booking and after negotiating everything. And these funds only get released at the end of the event, so it guarantees payment and trust on both sides as well.
Got it. Hey, something that and you must take a cut, right? On the platform? You take
Yeah,
a cut, right?
yeah.
How much is your cut? Or how much do you think it should be?
So I haven't built this yet, but my
Yeah.
idea is that I want to take a cut on a per successful transaction just to minimize friction early days as you build
Got it.
a marketplace. So you need
Yep.
to have a list of vendors first.
So and you're basically kind of like, sorry, and just to kind of like unfold the product a little bit, there's a bit of this that is discovery, right? So when June is going to get married, which is going to happen soon, she's not getting married soon, guys. So she goes on your platform and there's discovery, right? So she's trying to kind of find kind of flowers and kind of all this stuff. Okay, so there's discovery fees and you're generating kind of like leads. But then I think you're also thinking about doing kind of escrow. And so June would kind of pay your platform and then you would kind of hold the money until kind of the service is kind of done, right? So there's the discovery piece and then there's kind of like a operational kind of finance piece. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it's going to be a little bit end to end.
Got it. So one thing that and this might be kind of like too early for you to kind of like worry about, but something I'll kind of put in your brain is leakage is a problem with a lot of these marketplaces. And so basically what ends up happening is people will try to circumvent your platform so that they don't have to kind of like pay the fee, right? And so they, I don't know, some florists will put their WhatsApp in kind of like your listing, and so they're just like, hey, message me kind of directly, and kind of some of these kinds of things. And so the thing that you're gonna have to do to overcome this is your platform just has to be so valuable, and the escrow needs to be, if it's such a big problem that the escrow kind of keeps people on, where people don't want to do it outside of your program, even if paying more money makes sense to them, then I think that's going to be, you're going to be in kind of like good shape. But if people don't want to pay extra money and for kind of like escrow and some of these kind of things, that's going to be tricky. And the other thing too is if you are there using your platform, actually, now that I think about it, escrow is basically the like key thing in this kind of platform, because if I'm looking at your listings, you're going to show the listings, I think, for free. And I can also just Google the flower person or kind of the event planner or whatever, and I just contact them outside of it, right? So the escrow is really the thing that like people can't do outside of it. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I wonder which part of the wedding planning is kind of the most painful here that you would kind of want to dig into. Hey, what are you most worried about, Wayne?
So I'm in this case, what I'm worried about is the same thing as the leakages. Is like when people find this and the trust, I think that's one thing, because like how are you gonna vet the vendors such that they're all quality vendors so that they don't get off even after the transactions with us?
I think June wants to move on, but Wayne, there's a very easy way to vet vendors. I mean, for the first initial part of the thing is just get on a call with every vendor, right? Just like do the manual work of just like vetting vendors in the initial part. And so your initial value could actually just be that like I did the work of vetting all these vendors, and that's kind of your initial kind of value. But the escrow is kind of the long-term kind of like thing, but that's only if it's kind of such a big kind of piece.
Cool. Thank you, Wayne. Wayne, check out the chat. I think Jack worked on a similar idea before, so he dropped like a bunch of learnings. Okay, moving on. I think these people are not here, so I'm going to speed through them. Arnell? Is Arnell here? Okay, don't think so. Moving on. Vlad?
Hey guys. Yeah.
Hey.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. So the problem that I see that in Southeast Asia, many companies talk about how powerful AI is, but in reality, there is still a big gap between agentic AI and how it actually fits into daily workflows of those big, like, larger companies. At the same time, so many end-to-end agents are popping up, and the enterprises are just feel overwhelmed and unsure which ones actually deliver value, and then they have to pay like for HR, for HR, agent for like, I don't know, reconciliation, for whatever document organization stuff. So we see the solution. It is great to have an app that cuts most of the work in one place. And Flowcast is basically an AI native enterprise platform that transforms document-heavy workflows by automatically labeling, categorizing, and connecting data across agreement or whatever kinds of documents, and then building intelligent workflows for summarizing, comparing, translating, or decision-making data based on this data that we extracted, and turning static documents basically into dynamic business intelligence. And the main thing, we do it in a compliant and safe way, because that's the main cornerstone that we see right now for the companies to start implementing.
If like, what's the like first? This could be used in like a lot of different kind of ways. Is there kind of like a first kind of specific use case you're thinking this would be kind of like good for?
Right now, the most response we see from law firms and banks. So for law firms, the use cases are like, translation, drafting, comparing the documents and laws, like daily stuff that mostly people do, like manual workflows, repetitive workflows, they do on different levels. So it's not only interns, but also partners doing this. So it's very valuable for every level. And for banks, right now we have a POC with one of the big banks that they have like, they want to start small. So they have like a commercial department where they do work with big companies in terms of lending. So they need to do scoring. So for scoring, they have like long ass forms that needs to be filled and manually retyped in their calculator. And then so basically it's all, they need to process a bunch of company deeds and stuff like this, organize it, then retype it in their form and basically get the result, which we all can streamline.
Okay, so maybe kind of my first impressions here is I think my hunches is that you're going to want to kind of like you're going to want to kind of like focus in on kind of like more kind of specific kind of like use case. I think AI is kind of one of these tools that is kind of like it's such a magic trick that people are kind of like, oh my gosh, we can apply this to like all these kinds of things. And I think and so they are. And I think what's going to end up happening is there's going to be a set of people that make generalized tools, but I think that set of people is like OpenAI and giant kind of like companies like that. And so I think kind of competing on generalized tools is I think kind of like a very tough game to play. Then I think there's going to be a bunch of people that make kind of more specialized tools that adapt a lot of this technology to kind of like a specific use case and make it work super well for that kind of like case. And basically the litmus test is going to be if ChatGPT can kind of do this for me, then I have no reason to use any other kind of like specialized kind of product. And so when you're building kind of a specialized product, the trick is going to be, hey, how are you significantly kind of better than kind of ChatGPT? Because otherwise I'll just use ChatGPT because I already use ChatGPT, right? And so I would try to kind of like focus in on kind of one of these cases. By the way, I do think there's a lot of room to be better than ChatGPT in a lot of places. And so I think that's like a lot of room to play, but I would try to kind of focus in on kind of like a specific kind of like use case. And it sounds like you're talking to banks and this kind of stuff. And the sensitive stuff is a good place to mine because the sensitive information is not publicly available. And so ChatGPT can't train on it. It can't do a lot of these kinds of things. And so you can kind of like build in that. So that's like a good place to mine, I think.
That's why they basically, the response to ChatGPT mode is that they will not be able to do it because the companies don't want to trust them, this kind of data.
Thank you, Vlad.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Yes.
Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go for it.
Yep.
All right, guys. Hi, I'm Ayaz from Bangladesh, and what I'm trying to figure out is the viability of building a recruitment platform for factory workers, particularly for the Bangladeshi garments industry. So Bangladesh is the second largest garment producer in the world. We have about 4,000 factories and 4 million workers, and we estimate that about every month there's about 200,000 workers that are looking for new factory work. But factories are really still struggling to find people, right? So from the factory side, they spend up to 10 days every month trying to recruit, which is a big cost because 10 days out of the month, the lines are understaffed. And for workers, even experienced workers, they can spend weeks looking for work, which is very difficult for people that are sort of living on subsistence. And if factories and workers are well matched, because each worker has a specific specialization, workers can actually get a better salary too. So the way it works right now is completely chaotic. Every month, workers or job seekers show up at factory gates in big crowds, and they just hope that they'll make it to the front, and they just hope that this factory is looking for their skill set, but it's completely left up to chance. So what we want to do is we want to actually build screening centers around the industrial belt. So everyone that's looking for a job can come to us. We check out their skills, we do a little test, we check out their documents, and then we can connect them directly to the factories where their exact skills are needed. Yeah, so I've worked in this segment for the last 3 years. It's a problem that keeps coming up, and I'm really interested in seeing whether we can sort of modernize this recruitment process.
I used to work on a startup called Workmate that did something similar-ish, but it was kind of like different. I think there's two ways that you can kind of like, sorry, maybe I'll ask kind of the obvious question. Why do you think there is this inefficiency? So it sounds like there are people that can do a job, but and then there's people that want to hire those people, but those people are not getting kind of hired, right? And so is it just kind of an information problem? Like the people that want to hire these people can't find the people that have kind of these skills, and so there's just the information kind of like, is that it?
So it is essentially an information problem, and you need someone who's not a factory to serve all the factories, and you need someone to represent the workers, right? So a factory is not going to build a platform for everyone else to use, number one. The other challenge, which is a red flag with the idea, is that people working in the sector are pretty old school. So it is going to be a challenge to get them to try something new, but you know, if you can get that far, then it is a better way of doing it.
Okay, so different ways that you can kind of tackle this idea. So one is that if you want to go the higher skilled route, then you have to kind of do this vetting of kind of skills, and then that becomes your moat because you basically have a list of vetted people, and then you can kind of like put them to work. You can go the other way where you basically, if it's just a like manpower kind of problem, you kind of just get people who want jobs. And this is what my startup was before, which is basically like, who needs jobs? What are all the jobs that need to get done? No skills necessary, just kind of go to this job, right? And so that's kind of but different kind of businesses. The interesting idea that's been coming up a lot recently about how do we get kind of these old school businesses to use this platform? A thing that we're increasingly liking a lot at Iterative is basically it's this kind of about as like a what is it? People are calling it like full stack AI companies. And what I mean by that is rather than get a platform and then try to use all these kind of companies and do it, you just become your own kind of like agency. And so ostensibly to kind of these factories, they probably work with some recruitment agency anyway. Ostensibly, you look like a recruitment agency. They don't have to think about software. They don't have to do that. But internally, you have kind of so much tech that you're basically the most efficient, most effective kind of like agency kind of in the world. And so you're kind of like a tech company masquerading as kind of like an old school company kind of outside. And so that's something that I feel like we're seeing more people do. And so like there's a lot of AI accounting startups that are getting started right now, and they're all trying to build AI software for accounting firms. And the thing we're increasingly telling them is, hey, stop trying to convince accounting firms to kind of use your AI software because that's going to take forever. Just become an accounting firm and just like eat all their lunches. And so that's another place that you can play, right? Is like you don't, as far as other people are concerned, you are not kind of like a platform or whatever, but internally you absolutely are, right? So that's another way to kind of play it.
Yeah. I mean, a term that you hear sometimes thrown around in Bangladesh is the term digital, which basically means like a tech solution back, but we have a human interaction in the front. So if these guys wanted to send us an email or a WhatsApp saying we need these kind of workers, we take that, but we feed it into our database, right? So we don't want to force people to learn to use a UI, but you feed it in.
Actually, the interesting thing is I think most startups, they have a basically kind of like a what is it, like technology in the front, but they have a human in the back, and they're basically faking their software. I'm actually suggesting you do the reverse, right? And so you have a human in the front, but actually you're just feeding it into kind of your technology in the back. And so that's an interesting idea. I think it works better in emerging markets, basically, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're trying to figure out. And just to your point about skills.
Sorry, we have to move on. But
all right, thanks a lot, guys.
Leave things in the chat, email us, we'll get back to you. Thank you very much. Just a time check, we are 10 minutes away, which is really fast. We will try to get to as many as we can, but again, there is a chance we might not get to everybody. If that's the case, again, email us, we will get back to you via written format, so you can read all of his emails. So we'll do that. But in the time being, we're gonna get to as many as we can. Camille, are you here?
Yes, I am. Hi, everyone.
Hey, go for it.
The problem that I'm addressing here, people managers feel a lot of their reportees lack essential skills like critical thinking, communication, and all. And they're supposed to drive performance for the business, and they don't know exactly how to do coaching and mentoring for their reportees. So my application basically is a coaching app that fills that gap, basically.
Okay, we're going to try to do rapid fire here. And so my rapid fire kind of response to this is this is definitely kind of a thing, but I'm seeing kind of like Singapore companies they don't, as a culture, I think working culture, they don't invest in kind of developing people as much as they should be. And so I hope this changes. But they're kind of, I think a lot of kind of people here who run companies, the managers are kind of, you're 100% right. They're kind of ill-equipped to do it. And then the companies are kind of like not investing in this. So the thing that I would try to think about here to kind of get this off the ground is long term, I think this gets solved because the world gets too competitive. You have to be able to invest in your people. But short term, I think it kind of like could be a challenge. The thing I might think about here is, are there pockets of industries or kind of segments or size of companies that really do care about this, right? And so, like in the United States, like if you have SF startups, they care so much about this. Like investing in your people is like such a big thing. But like you go to like a Walmart in Tennessee, they probably don't care that much. And so maybe there's like you have to kind of pick well on who is going to kind of really care about investing, who's going to kind of get this. If you have to make a pitch about why developing your people is important, I think you should just end the sales call. Like just move on, right?
Yes.
Go find somebody else. And so
Yeah.
I think that's my kind of thing. Charles?
That's good. Let's move on.
Cool. Thank you, Camille. If you have questions, just leave it in the chat.
All right, thanks.
Fabian?
This is how are you doing? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hello, how are you doing? Thank you very much for the invite. Yes, the thing that right now I've been finding out is that many energy traders around the world are losing around $17
Sorry,
billion.
Fabian, you're very muffled. We can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Better.
better.
All right. So the thing that I saw recently, because of many news and many things with other energy traders colleagues, is that they are losing a lot of money because of price volatility they cannot predict, and it's because the tools that they have, they are only using like financial instead of physical constraints because we are dealing with commodities like oil or LNG. So I realized that, okay, let's do this with a patent pending hybrid system dynamics engine that actually improves the forecast by 56% versus the industry standard. So it's turning volatility into opportunity.
My quick kind of like take here is if you can really kind of like if you can predict better than energy traders, then you don't need to be a startup. You should just be a hedge fund and you're just going to make a lot of money doing this. And so I don't understand why you want to be a startup. Like if you could predict better than energy traders, just make money predicting better than energy traders, right? So like, why do you need to be a startup here? I think is my take. And so if you can really do this, then you should just trade energies and you'll basically become a billionaire and not have to just do this, right? And so I think to me, this sounds like a hedge fund pitch more than kind of like a startup pitch, primarily because if you can really kind of do better than energy traders, right? And so lots of questions on like why you're able to do this. We don't need to kind of get into this. We don't have kind of time to get into this, but lots of questions around kind of like why you're able to do this when energy traders spend billions of dollars to kind of try to figure this out. But if you can, you should just be an energy trader then.
All right, sounds a very welcoming piece of advice, and I really appreciate this feedback.
Thank you, Fabian. Moving on to Farhan.
Hi, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yep, go for it.
Okay, so one of the biggest challenges that Bangladeshi small and medium business owners who does business in F-commerce and e-commerce faces is that they have to navigate lots of tools at the same time, right? So it kills their efficiency. It eats up a lot of their time and effort that they could have invested elsewhere in their business's growth, right? So we are thinking about a solution around that problem where they will have a unified platform where there will be omni-channel chat boxes, they will get their inventory managed by AI backups, right? The product that we are thinking is still being shaped as we speak. We're still working on it, but the problem is there. Most of the Western tools related and addressing these issues does not make sense in our context, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it.
This is a great idea, and I like a lot of businesses have been funded on this very principle. I would really look at Indonesia because a lot of VCs pump money into there. Not to say that it's a bad idea, but a lot of businesses really struggle because SMBs are kind of old school. They're not very tech savvy. So getting them to adopt your solutions is quite challenging. It's a very fragmented market. But I think if you can build some systems so you can efficiently acquire these customers, keep them on, it's a huge market, and VCs are willing to swing. But I would really study the other businesses, and Indonesia being the biggest one.
So since you mentioned that fragmented tools, there's a huge tech deficiency here in Bangladesh. And one of the reasons is that every other app platform or app has different UX, right? So one UX, unified channel that addresses all these issues can solve a lot of these problems.
Yeah, I think the issue that a lot of, I mean, I'm not saying this may be a problem, but a lot of like people don't even have phones. People don't even they're very, very old school. So they're keeping things on paper, and even getting them to adopt any sort of digital thing is hard. And so it's not just a hard UX, it's that they don't even have like electricity to powering their things.
Yeah, Farhan, maybe I know Juna's trying to rush us through this, but this is a thing that has happened in a lot of kind of like emerging markets in a lot of countries. And so if you haven't, I would kind of dig around to kind of see how this has played out in other kind of markets, and you can kind of like see what it is. Not that it's going to play exactly the same in Bangladesh, but the more and more I work with companies in different countries and stuff, there's a lot of kind of similarities. You just have to pick the right one. And so this has happened in places, so I would dig into that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Farhan. Okay, we are 4 minutes away from 7:30. Let's try to hit 5, I want to say, and then we will call it a day. Joy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so today AI companies struggle to get access to high performance GPUs to train and deploy models. And there are cloud GPUs, but they are often overpriced and unavailable. Meanwhile, 20 to 30% of the GPUs in co-location data centers remain idle, wasting billions of dollars annually and consuming energy with no return. And also, there is no easy way to discover and book this capacity, which remains hidden behind brokers and longer sales cycle. So we are building a B2B marketplace, connecting the AI startups and enterprises with the underutilized GPU capacity in regional data centers. On the platform, buyers can instantly search, compare, and book GPUs, turning this ideal infrastructure into a discoverable asset. The platform solves both demand problem for data centers and access problem for AI teams. So I'm excited to build the liquidity layer in the cloud and AI infra market.
This is it's an interesting idea. Maybe kind of my initial kind of like impression of this is like there's definitely going to be, I think, probably some security kind of concerns with some of this. I mean, you're basically going to kind of use some people's kind of like data, and so on one end, some people are going to have access to kind of like data clusters that they wouldn't have otherwise, and then the people with those data clusters are basically going to run stuff on their computer, and so they can kind of see too. And so security stuff, whatever. See, I mean, I think it's workable, but like that's going to come up. I think the thing I would kind of think about here from a customer standpoint is like, who are the people who have kind of spare GPU capacity, right, or supply, and then who are the people that are going to kind of like want that GPU supply? Not all GPU supply is equal in the sense that like I think this is the case, right, where it's kind of like OpenAI is likely to never want to use something like this, right, but there is probably a lot of people who want access to some level of kind of compute who could want some of this. And so I think the thing from a business standpoint I would try to think about is what is the set of people who have kind of spare kind of like supply that would be willing to kind of do something like this and are kind of going to be motivated to kind of like do it? And then what are the people that would kind of want to kind of do something like this and then not want to use one of the traditional kind of like ways? And you basically, this is like you have to play the incentive overlap game where one side has to get enough incentive, but that bounds the other side on kind of whether they're going to get enough, and hopefully there's enough kind of like incentive kind of overlap. And if there is, you're in very good shape, and if there isn't, then maybe kind of like not so big of a market, right? But that's the thing I would kind of like think about here is like, who are the people that would provide the supply and who's providing the demand? And I don't think it's everybody who's going to kind of use GPUs, and not certainly at the beginning. And so I would probably kind of like think about that.
Also, I would think like 20-30%
Thank you.
seems quite low. I think if you work in B2B, you realize that 20-30% is like, that's just the cost of doing business. And I feel like I wonder if they have to keep that 20-30% and how priority that is.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Joy. Okay,
Thanks.
I know we are at 7:30, but let's like bulldoze. Kevin Phillip.
Hi. So I'm an accountant and we have a software development company working with APIs of AI companies. So recently, one of our clients asked us about the accounting standard called IFRS 17, and I did a deep dive. And what I learned is that the insurance company industry face a multi-billion-dollar challenge with IFRS 17 compliance. It's a new accounting standard that's transforming how insurers measure and report insurance contracts. So in the Philippines, 85 insurers need solutions by 2027, but current software takes 18 plus months to implement and is costly. So I'm exploring a Gen AI platform to automate and accelerate this process, but I am unsure whether to pursue this project given its complexity. And I'm not sure even if the AI models can actually tackle the actuarial calculations, data integration, reporting automation, and all of this wrapped into an end-to-end solution. So looking for an advice for validating this idea, or if it's worth
You should
pursuing.
100% spend your energy not worrying about the technical limitations and 100% focused on does the market want this, right? Like
Yeah.
you can definitely build this 100%. I don't know anything about it. I feel like I don't need to know anything about it. You can build this. Like this is not the hardest problem that kind of like is kind of like out there. And so I don't think that's the risk that you should be worried about. I think the thing is like do the people who are going, these insurance companies, are they going to want a product that kind of like does this? And the way that I would kind of solve this is go start selling it to those people. Like go tell
Okay.
people that you have built a product that does all the things that you're saying that it kind of does, and see if any of them will kind of like bite, right? But market risk is much scarier than kind of like build risk. Build risk is, that's kind of within your control. And so you can kind of like solve build risk, right? But market risk is always, always, always the scariest one.
Yeah, if you already know the 85 companies, like you should go there. I think that speed is
Just
going to
go
be the
there.
biggest thing. Yeah, that's awesome.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Last three. Let's go. Michelle. Is Michelle here?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, go for it.
Hey.
Hi. Nice to meet you all. So I'm Michelle, the founder of the Candid Beauty Edition. We help Black women cut through the noise and find low toxic, high performing beauty that actually works for our skin and hair. So Black women in the United States spend about 7.5 billion a year on beauty, yet we're disproportionately exposed to toxic chemicals. And most current ingredient tools out there are either confusing, fear-based, or don't center Black women. So our app is changing that. It's a digital platform and AI-powered mobile app that makes clean beauty simple and accessible, and you can scan a label or paste ingredients and will instantly break it down in plain English, flagging what matters, suggesting safer swaps, and pointing you toward Black-owned and inclusive brands. So no scare tactics, just receipts. And beyond the app, we're building out educational resources such as our website and real reviews on deeper skin tones using guides made through PDFs. And you can sign up through our newsletter.
Hey, Michelle. This reminds me of a product that, sorry, it is not the same product as what you're building. So I'm not suggesting that somebody else kind of like did this, but there's a product that I've been using recently on around supplements. I put it into the chat called Sup, and basically it does a similar kind of thing, but for supplements. And so you scan the label, and basically they have a bunch of kind of like, they've done a bunch of the tests. They bring that all together into a kind of like piece. And some of the ways that they actually kind of built on top of it was they actually prescribe kind of like sets that you should kind of like take. So if you want to do something for aging 40-year-old men like me, you take this set of things, and they talk about it and they can recommend. And so I could imagine there's a similar thing you can kind of like do for your kind of like target market, which is like Black women. I think there's probably certain sets, and you could help them kind of identify in some of these kinds of things. And so I think there's like a lot of kind of like areas that you can kind of like play here. I wonder, actually, let me ask you, Michelle, what do you think is the hardest part of kind of like beauty for kind of Black women? Is it just like finding like, I'm just making stuff, I don't know anything about beauty. Is it like skin tone? Is it just ingredients that are bad for your skin? Like, what do you think the biggest problem is?
Yeah, I think for Black women, it's probably inclusivity. It's sometimes really hard to find things that work for our hair just because it's different. You know, it's like
it's different.
Some people's is dry and everything like that. And then skin tone, sometimes makeup doesn't have like the right undertones. But specifically for clean beauty, it's a bit of a tricky spot sometimes because the clean beauty industry is catered to more white women because it's like a bigger niche area, so a lot of Black women don't even know about it. So that's kind of something I have trouble with, because it's like I'm trying to educate people at the same time, but when they find out about it, they are really concerned about it. So I think the biggest thing is probably just like lack of education, and then lack of inclusivity, especially among clean beauty.
I think one thing to jump in is like these types of startups do really well often in terms of like content. So I think if you could like start like an Instagram channel or something, and you get lots of people following and engaging with your content, that's a really good GTM.
Thank you.
Michelle, maybe just like random thoughts for you. And I know kind of June wants to kind of move on, but random thoughts for you. If there's not enough of these products that exist, there's a part of me that is like, Michelle, maybe you should make a product and kind of sell the thing for kind of people. So that's the thing.
Yeah.
If the problem is, hey, these products exist, but they're hard to find and they're kind of not verified, like supplements, for example, there's a million supplements, half of them kind of suck, like, but you can't tell the difference. Then a product like Sub makes sense because you're helping kind of wade through the noise, right? And so if the problem is too much noise, then a product that kind of rates that kind of makes sense. If it's a discovery thing, then that could make sense in that product. I think people lean on a lot of content for some of the beauty stuff. If the products don't exist, then I'm like, Michelle, just make the products is the other kind of like game here, right? But maybe the last thing on Charles's content thing is we find that content, at least in our portfolio companies, they've had some success here. The content seems to be moving into this game where you make content for a very specific niche of people. And I feel like, and I'm sure there are influencers for that, or Black women kind of beauty and that kind of stuff. But I wonder if you have like a different angle and you can go even kind of more kind of niche in that. And we've seen kind of a lot of portfolio companies actually start with the content to build distribution, and then they launch a company to that kind of following. And so that could be another way that you test out whether people want this or not. Are people kind of engaging with your content? Do they like this? You could kind of like work on this that way. But it's kind of an interesting place. I'm always kind of excited when people are tackling pockets of people who are otherwise kind of ignored by kind of like kind of mainstream, right?
Yeah, I love these ideas. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, last two, and then we're gonna wrap it up. I think Arman has left. Manvendra?
Hey, hi everyone. So yeah, basically the idea was that like CRMs are used for sales, but then once the sales happens, the engagement with the product and the upselling the product is a journey that product teams and CS teams have to look after, right? So I'm trying to build something around this, which captures all the user engagement data points into one platform, and then it kind of correlates the structured and unstructured data and try to give actionable insights to the PMs around like what exactly needs to be built, what are the pain points or the friction that the users are talking about, or probably the CSMs can like target or filter the user on the basis of certain criteria and do in-app campaigns or email campaigns to improve the adoptions.
Okay, maybe kind of initial reactions here is post sales is kind of an interesting kind of thing to kind of do here. And you're basically trying to, post sales is all about kind of decreasing churn and increasing kind of like upsell, basically. Maybe the thing I would kind of think about here is kind of initial kind of market stuff where I'm kind of like, okay, who really cares about kind of like post sales and where does this really matter and who's going to kind of really want it? I think not everybody that does sales, I mean, maybe they should all care about post sales, but some kind of care about it kind of more than others. Sorry, maybe the thing I'm trying to say is I would try to avoid selling to customers who you need to convince that post sales is important. Because then you got to convince them post sales is important, and you got to convince them that they should use your product, and that's just like too much effort and too much time. Go find people who already kind of agree that post sales is important, and so all you have to do is sell that like, hey, you should use your product. And I wonder what industry that kind of like is and like that kind of stuff. But I wonder if there's like different parts here. But I think my biggest thing here would probably be just focusing on kind of like who you target as kind of that.
Got it. And like according to you, like what is the best way to kind of pin down on? So like in my opinion, my like coming
Sell
from
to them.
Got it.
So
Like
sorry, maybe this, and I'll say this and we can kind of wrap up, June. So this is for kind of everybody. If you're trying to kind of figure out who kind of wants it the most, and you guys can apply this to all of your situations. It's the framework is ostensibly the same. So for you, I would come up with who are the 10 types of companies and who at the company that you think would kind of want this. And so you come up with this list of kind of like 10. And there's different permutations on company size, who you sell to, what industry they are, blah, 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 blah. But I would pick 10, right? And then I would stack rank those 10 and be like, okay, which ones do I think based on what you know, and you're making a hypothesis around kind of like what you think, who you think is going to want this the most. And I would stack rank to 10. And then every 2 weeks, if you're good, you can do this in 1 week. But every 2 weeks, I would take the top 3 profiles or kind of like target markets from that like 10, and then I would try to sell to each of those groups. And so I would try to sell to 20 of this group, 20 of this group, 20 of this group, and I would compare the funnel across. And so you are looking for kind of hotspots where one funnel is kind of like much more efficient than the other one, and that's probably because those people want it more than you. I would then play survival of the fittest, aka Highlander, for people who are very old like me. But basically, it's like you take the top 3, you compete them against each other. The funnel that is the most productive, you remove the other 2 and add 2 more from the list, run them against each other again, remove, and then you basically are trying to just go through your list, and you're trying to build this like search stack rank of kind of like this person and this types of people are kind of the ones I want most, and then you kind of double down and focus on them. And so you're basically doing this, like, for all the engineers out there, it's basically a tree. You're doing search. You should do kind of breadth first search, and then as you're kind of moving down, you're narrowing. And so yeah, so that makes sense.
And the one thing I would add there is like, don't pitch them on a CRM. Like pitch them on, hey, I can decrease your churn by 20%, or I can increase your upsell by like X%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And someone will hire you as a consultant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Hsu Ken, wrap up?
Yes.
Okay, let's wrap up because we are way over time. I'm gonna stop staring. Guys, thank you so much for staying until the end. We're really sorry that we couldn't get to everyone. Again, if you still want Hsu Ken's feedback, Hsu Ken's thoughts, not feedback, email us. I think, Martha, if you could drop our emails, email me at ejun@iterated.vc and Hsu Ken at iterated.vc. We will get back to you. Hsu Ken, any last words?
I think maybe the last words I would kind of say for people, and people kind of at the stage and you're trying to decide whether your idea is kind of like good or not, I would default to action. And so I think one of the mistakes that Brian and I made very early on is we spent a lot of time on couches and rooms like this and debating how the world works and how we think the world works. And basically what we found out after hours and hours of debates and months of building stuff based off of those debates is we have no idea how the world works, and we are horrible predictors of it. And so our startup careers kind of like changed dramatically when we started recognizing that we don't know what we're talking about. We don't know how the world works. And instead, we're just going to be very good at designing experiments to figure out what the world works. So we don't have to take our word for it. We're just going out into the world and kind of being like, let's see how it kind of works. And that kind of changed everything for us. And so I think if you feel like you're stuck, thinking about it more often will not kind of get you kind of like as much kind of gains as kind of going out there and doing stuff. I'm very fond of a saying, which is action creates information. And so oftentimes if you're trying to make a decision and you're stuck, it's because you don't have enough information. And it's hard to generate information from just sitting there. And so one thing you can do is you can take action to create the information. And so I think as a very general kind of thing is like default to kind of action. It will generate information for you, and then it will help you kind of like make some decisions.
All right, thank you. Special shout out to Charles, Urif, all the iterative founders who stayed and chipped in. Thank you very much. All right, thank you, everyone.
Oh, thanks, everyone. See ya.
Bye.